I almost feel like Indiana is what really kind of sets that reality in. Because if it had just been Michigan and Ohio State, there are people from your generation, my generation, who would go, well, yeah, I mean, Michigan and Ohio State, duh, like they've dominated the Big Ten forever. That doesn't change the power dynamics. We don't think about the Big Ten differently, but, think about this too. Before Michigan won that national title 2 years ago, the Big Ten was searching for its first non Ohio State outright national champion since 1952 Michigan State. And what they've been able to do in this 3 year stretch is totally change the complexion of the sport.
Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Meldon Law Studios at the Hacienda. Okay, and welcome into another edition of another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, coming to you from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome here studio. We have a great show for you today. Connor O'Gara is going to join us from Saturday Down South, an Indiana alum. So he's going to be able to crow. There's not very many times when you can crow as an Indiana football fan, but he certainly should be able to now. And then Coach Spurrier will be back on Monday. And then next Thursday, Kevin O'Sullivan's going to join us. So we keep knocking out of the park with our guests and just doing the best we can, and appreciate all of you for being part of this. Let's go ahead and get to our Royal Blue starting five, brought to you by Randy Royal over at Royal Blue Yacht Sales. They're the only place to buy a boat. I did want to announce, I talked to Randy the other day that, and again, I appreciate Randy for being a part of this for well over a year. But he's, like everything, he's got to pull out now for a while and may come back. But so that's going to be an opening starting in February for the opening segment of this show, the starting five. And right now it's still the Royal Blue for another couple of shows. But then we do appreciate Randy so much. I mean, he kind of came out of nowhere, and I've known him for a long time and appreciate him. If you want to call me, you know how to get a hold of me. And patrickdooley54@gmail.com is the best place to text me. I did have somebody who wanted to get on board and we had kind of worked it out, but then I started thinking, and I talked to some people. He does the same thing 3 other people do, and then we just felt like we'll wait on him. But if you want to sponsor the starting five, you can do it. All right, let's get to our Royal Blue starting five, and let's start with number 1, which was the basketball game on Tuesday night. Florida blows out LSU. I considered, and again, I am the most pessimistic person going into a game. I always think there's a way for you to beat Florida, because that's just the way I am. And I think Robbie and I have talked about this before. This goes back to our upbringing when we were young kids, and the Gators always blew it, and never went to the NCAA tournament, and never won the SEC. And so I think it's just kind of ingrained in both of us. So when LSU comes to town, and I watch LSU beat Missouri, who's the only team that's beaten Florida, I'm like, yeah, this could be a battle here. And they got back one of their guys who'd been out for 5 weeks. He didn't do anything. DJ, I'm blanking on his last name, but anyway, I think he missed all but one shot. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, going into the game, yeah, a little nervous. These guys just beat Vanderbilt on the road. Everybody's excited. Everybody's fired up. Hopefully they don't think they've discovered the cure for cancer. I mean, that's the thing. You've got to go into every game with a new and study the film and study the tendencies of the other team. And they did. And these guys came out and just blew them right off the court. It was easy to watch. That's what I like. Easy to watch games. Now, last year we had a lot of tough to watch games, but they almost always won them. And so at the end, you're all happy. And I was certainly happy after this one, but it was certainly a good win. Florida, I know that I've never seen this. I have seen a 7-point possession in my life. I've never seen 2 of them in consecutive games. But somehow Florida does this. And boy, does that take your, just fire out of the opposing team when here's the score. All right, they're going to get another possession, and now here's going to be the score. No, that's not good. 7 points in one possession. But that's what you can do when you rebound the way the Gators do. And they just dominated the boards 50-30. I think they missed, maybe they didn't. But anyway, 50-30. And Ruben Chenyulu, of course, leading away with 21. Could have had even more, but he was at one point, I think he was close to out rebounding the entire LSU team. Um, LSU's got some big guys. I mean, Nwoko had a good game until he fouled out, but I mean, physically, Chinyalu's just giving you something that I don't remember. Like Donnell Harvey had a little bit of that physicality, but he wasn't as physical. He was more of a jumper. Chinyalu is one of these guys who has these incredibly long arms, and it's almost Inspector Gadget like, and like it feels like his hands go up a little higher than everybody else, and that's how he gets so many rebounds. I don't look. The guy is just playing at a high level. I hope it continues. There's no reason to think it won't. He's putting in the work. I know that Chris Harry was tweeting out to somebody that somebody had tweeted about Chinyalu, and he said, you won't believe what he does after the games and after he's putting in the work. This is his year, and he wants to be special, and he is being special. And then you have Klavchar with 18 points, hitting a career high 5 threes. Last week it was at one point it was Boogie Flan, then it was Xavier Lee Saturday, and then it was Klavchar, and Isaiah Brown is all of a sudden becoming a factor for this team, which I'm so happy for. I wanted him to be. I knew that if he could start making some shots, he could be. And so this team feels like it is in a great place right now. Of course, it's a long college basketball season, and so the pessimist in me is always going to look at what they have left on the schedule, and there's some tough games. There's I wrote about this. If you can go read it at patreon.com/Dooley noted. I wrote about it yesterday about the rest of the schedule and how it looks and what the keys are. And one of them is they've got two different back-to-backs where they go Sunday, Wednesday, I think, or Saturday, Wednesday, sorry, and they have to play pretty good teams, and they're on the road. And those will be factors. If you can get out of that with like 3-1, that would be great. But that's the way it is. I mean, it's the SEC. It's not the conference it was last year, but it's still better than the conference it was 7 years ago. It's still a very difficult conference, but so you got to show up to play every day, and there are teams that are getting better. Kentucky, A&M refuses to lose, so it's not like this is going to be handed to you. You got to go earn it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Florida now is at 14 in the net, which is good. The goal is to be, the goal is very simple, and that is to get to Tampa for the NCAA tournament. You got to be a top 4 seed to do that. Right now, they would be in that. But you got to keep winning. Got to keep winning. Keep on pushing. Who said that? Was that was in Finding Nemo, right? Yeah, that's what it was. That always stay with me. Keep on pushing. Anyway, I'm babbling here. Certainly a great effort, a great crowd. Sold out for this week, the next game as well, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's get to number 2 on our Royal Blue starting 5, brought to you by Royal Blue Yacht Sales. Next up is Auburn, which it's interesting for Todd and for Bruce Pearl's son, Stephen, because Stephen and Todd were best friends when they were on the staff together, but they played each other so many times already. I mean, twice last year, right? Florida won them both, by the way. Just want to mention that. But look, I don't think Auburn's as good as they were last year. I think they've struggled. I think the whole Stephen Pearl taking over thing, sometimes it's different, his dad was a shouter. maybe he's not as I'm not around their program, but it is different. They still got a really good team. You know that. I mean, you know how good they could be, and that's going to be a tough win. That's a tough win. Sold out. That's great. Um, I was actually trying to get 2 tickets for my wife, and it turns out because I'm going to go to the game, sit in press row, but turns out that the cheapest tickets are like $90. I don't know that I'm ready to spend 90. Well, I have to spend 180 for 2 tickets. So if anybody has 2 tickets, let me know. Um, I'll pay face value, but oh man, $90 for a basketball game just feels like a lot of money. And if you look at the secondary prices, secondary market, it's unbelievable. It's like $1,400 for the great seats, which aren't even that great of seats, to be honest with you. You're kind of cramped in there. They're not great for me because with 2 knee replacements, it can get a little bit discomfortable. That's a new word I just made up. Anyway, so that in the SEC though, Kentucky wins again last night. Watched that game. Watched some of the A&M game, but it was pretty obvious they were going to win. They won by 20. That's a good team. I mean, he has done a great job coming in. I mean, I don't think people expected them to be as good as they were with um, Buzz Williams leaving, but hey, they've done a great job and they're a good team. I've watched them play a lot. It'll be a battle, but that's down the road as far as playing them. Eventually, we'll see how this all shakes out in the conference race. Florida 5-1, Texas A&M 5-1, Kentucky 4-2. I mean, there's a lot of really good teams in this league. There may not be as many as there were last year. We may never see that again, the 14-bid league. But there's still a lot of good teams, and there are a lot of potholes on the road to winning a championship. And that's the thing I wrote for Patreon was how does Florida win the SEC? And there were 12 easy steps. So anyway, you can go read that there and become a member. We keep getting more members. It's really fun to be a part of that. So 4 p.m. ESPN is where the game is going to be on Saturday, and yours truly will be there. Hopefully, I can find tickets for my wife that are. I don't mind paying 50 or something, but $90 for a ticket. That seems. And there are some for 130. These are just regular tickets. Regular tickets. What is going on in this world? Anyway, hey, I'm shouting at the clouds now. I'm not going to pay that much for a ticket. I don't even believe in NIL. All right, let's move along to number 3 on our Royal Blues starting 5, which is, I know it was way back last Monday, but I did want to talk about the game, the Indiana win, and it's good that we have Connor O'Gara on. It was kind of lucky timing because he went to Indiana, so I'm sure he's going to be excited. I did purchase an Indiana t-shirt. It should be here in a couple of days. I was so into the game. We watched it with my daughter Kelsey and her boyfriend Jack and Karen. We all sat out there and watched it. Had a nice spaghetti dinner and watched the whole game together, which usually doesn't happen. I am a creature of habit. I come in here to the cave and watch games because then I can watch another game on a second TV. But this is the national championship game. Let's all watch it together. And we were all into it. But it was a fun game to watch because it was exciting and thrilling. And you look like Indiana had put them away, and then they didn't. And the block kick was huge, and so was the interesting thing on the punt because Malachi Toney fielded it on his like the 4-yard line. And the play was, if you can watch the replay, one of their players went down. They were going to run one of those fake punt return passes. And usually when people do that, it's out of desperation. But look, if it had worked, it would have been great, and everybody would have talked because the guy was wide open to run down the field. Now, eventually somebody probably would have tackled him, but they were maybe over pursuing. They had him caught in it, but he caught the punt so deep and they were on him right away. They had to get to him. Malachi Tony, though, is unbelievable to watch. I will say this: I don't think there was any doubt that the two best teams were playing. Now, Miami didn't have the best season the way Indiana did, but they were the two best teams. Um, so many pros on that Miami team. Bain is just ridiculous. Messidor is ridiculous. Carson Beck wasn't great, but he did, for the most part, he did the kind of things he needed to do till he threw the last pick. That was certainly a bad throw. Mark Fletcher, ridiculous. Somebody was complaining. I saw this. They didn't show Trump. They didn't show Rubio. They didn't show Tom Brady. But they kept showing the Mendoza and the Fletcher families. And I'm like, yeah, they had something to do with the game, didn't they? Their kids were the stars of the game. Well, among the stars, but certainly two of the most prominent stars. The wife has MS and can't get out of her seat. I wanted to keep seeing them when he would do something good. And I wanted to see Mark Fletcher's mom. That is a great story. Driving to every game because she's afraid of flying. And went to all the games because the dad passed away. And I know Mark Fletcher took a swing at an Indiana player afterwards, and allegedly the player said something about his dead father. I don't know what happened there. He did go back out and congratulate some guys. So Carson Beck did not shake anybody's hand doing Carson Beck things. So in the end, everybody lived up to their personalities. Mendoza, at some point, you're like, God, they can't protect him and he can't do anything. Then he makes that run. And he's like, by the way, I have a Heisman for a reason. That was a great performance. I would say that if you are a Indiana fan, you should be commissioning a Mendoza trophy. I mean, not trophy, a statue with that run. Like they have in Omaha, they got the kids celebrating, and there's another where they have a guy sliding into home, and and of course we have the three statues here with all guys doing different things. But I would have that. But eventually you're gonna have to put one up for Signetti too. So get ready for that because that guy is attention to detail, the never getting too excited. He's pretty amazing guy, amazing coach, and got it done. And that's the bottom line. When you get it done, when you win that, there aren't many coaches out there that have national championships on their resume that are still coaching. Was it Kirby? I know there's one other, and I can't think of who. Well, Kirby, no, Dabo, yes. Is it Kirby, Dabo, and Signetti now? And Ryan Day. Yeah, I think that may be it. That may be the list. There may be somebody else I'm missing. Anyway. All right. So let's move along to number 4 on our Royal Blue starting 5, and here's the only way I can say this. What are we doing? Well, I mean, this is just getting so ridiculous that I'm having to read legal briefs all the time. I don't know. I mean, I understand what's going on, and I understand why you need to lawyer up, and it's very important to do that anytime you have an issue. But the whole Darian Mensah thing is driving me crazy, and mainly it's because I don't want him going to Miami. Look, I don't like Miami. I want Miami to lose every game it plays, except against FSU. And then I never really root for FSU though. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that for Darian Mensah to sign a deal, has a deal with Duke, commits to saying, makes a big announcement, and then minutes later is in the portal. And now Duke, the way Duke is suing him, they're saying you can't get in. You don't have to play here, but you can't play anywhere else, and you can't get any NIL deals anywhere else. Now, this will probably all get resolved, and he'll probably end up playing for Miami. He's a really good player, and they're already working on his top wide receiver to come with him. And I'm sure there's some tampering going on. But tampering? Oh, what are you talking about? Oh, well, there was a player from uh, Umalalalan, Prince Will Umalalalan, not Prince Lee, who's in the NFL, but Prince Will, who was at Ole Miss and committed to come back to Ole Miss, and within minutes signed with LSU. I mean, there's definitely there are no rules, and that's something that I think everybody feels right now. There are no rules right now, and the NCAA needs to go hard after this. Bediako, is that what you say his name? Bediako, Charles Bediako, who was granted eligibility yesterday too, which is ridiculous. He signed 3 different pro contracts. It's not right, and I'm saying that Florida should go and talk to Bradley Beal, see if he wants to come back and play. I mean, he'd have 3 years eligibility left. He couldn't make the kind of money, but or I mean, this is how crazy it's gotten. It's almost like you want to look and say, hey, well, if everybody's going to do it, and that's the argument NATO's got mad when Baylor signed Najee, that kid who has really done a whole lot. He got mad about that. Says, it's taken away from high school kids. I coached high school basketball. This is not. No, but now, hey, somebody else will take them, so we might as well take them. Coaches have sold their soul all over the country for this. I just don't. The NCAA needs to go hard after this. They're not going to win probably, but if they can win, then they can start enforcing the rules again. If they don't win, it's probably just going to get blown up. Maybe the end of the NCAA, unless they just want to run all these smaller, the lacrosse championships. So they do a great job of that as a rule. So maybe that's what they want to do, and that's it, because it's kind of a win or bust for the NCAA, I think, at this point. And if they don't, then who's governing? I think that's when we go to super conferences and a different group. Don't forget that the NCAA is the presidents of the school, okay? And like what I think they should do, and I think it makes sense to me, but not to the people that are defending Charles Bediako. I think they should say, hey, you're not eligible. We said you're not eligible, and that's the way it is. And every game you play in is going to be forfeited. And when we come time to the NCAA selection committee, all of a sudden you're looking at a 9 and I don't even know what their record is right now, but 12 and 18 record. Okay? And you're not getting in the tournament with that. That's what they should do. I don't know if it's what they will do. And I don't know if it'll just go to court too, and they'll sue them for that. But here's the thing. You don't have to tell anybody you're doing it. Just let them play. And then at the end of the season on Selection Sunday, say, I'm sorry, Alabama, you didn't get in. Those games are all with an ineligible player. Well, now by the time you sue, I don't know that you can get that done in time. I don't know. Look, I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV. So I'm just trying to, but I go back to my point of what are we doing here? It's gotten totally out of control. Now pros are playing in college. College kids are pros anyway. And now we're bringing guys who've been in the NBA, been in played overseas in pro leagues. I don't know. It does feel like the high school kids are getting, kind of shoved out, but I don't know. That's a scholarship they already had open. I'd love to see his class schedule. Anyway, I'm just going to leave all that stuff there. I said a lot of things here, and I'm not sure that any of them made sense, but I just am so discouraged right now with what's going on. And I've talked about this multiple times especially with football, that I thought football was idiot proof, and it's clearly not idiot proof because there are a lot of idiots. And not only that, but it's almost become like I've always said that politics is Auburn, Alabama. Auburn cannot do anything right in Alabama eyes. Alabama cannot do anything right in Auburn eyes. no matter what they do. Okay, they did help with little turnover there. They did help with when they had the tornadoes. That certainly was very good. Appreciated that. But for the most part, these people hate each other, like the Democrats and Republicans. Same thing. Now it's the courts and the lawyers, or the NCAA and the lawyers, that have this severe hatred for each other, and nothing either one can do is right. Nothing. Why can't we all just get along and come up with a plan and do? But no, we got to sue. We got to do this anyway. Let's move along to Mark Pope, by the way, last night came out and said the same thing that I'm saying. You can't make him eligible, and I think everybody's feeling this. I think the coaches don't have the voice they think they have. And don't forget this: even if they do that, they say, "Hey, you're not eligible." You know who's on that committee? Greg Byrne, the AD at Alabama. Now he has to recuse himself, but you know how that works. You have to recuse yourself, but you're still going to dinner with those people, and you're still coming into the meeting after you get back from your recusement and go, "Hey, I hope you guys put us in." You know, believe me, being on the committee helps. No, I don't care who it is. All right, let's get to number 5 on our Royal Blue starting 5, which is, hey, we're going to find out who's in the Super Bowl on Sunday. 2 games. I want to go ahead and give you the times right here because I ran out of room on our swamp games of the weekend, but I'll mention them again. New England at Denver at 3 o'clock, CBS. And the Rams at Seattle, 6:30 on Fox. Rams are a slight favorite. New England is a big favorite. 5.5 points on the road is surprising, but not surprising because Jared Stidham is going to start because of Bo Nix's injury. Stidham has played in the NFL before, but he hadn't thrown a pass in 2 years. You never know with a game like this. It's like a game I would totally stay away from, but I think there'll be a lot of people that are going to say, "Hey, look, we know how good the Patriots are on defense, and they're just going to make life miserable for him." And we'll lay the 5.5. We'll see how that goes, but it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to the games. I'm trying to figure out. I know I'm rooting for New England, okay? And look, I was rooting against New England the last game. I'm not a Patriots fan, and the Rams Seattle game, though, I can't figure out which. I used to be, I've told you this before, a big Rams fan. When they moved to moved to St. Louis, I dumped them. Then I became a Seattle fan. Seattle, because they seemed like the most college team to me. They acted like college fans. The stadium looked like a college one. I liked the colors. Then they fired Pete Carroll and got rid of Russell Wilson. I don't care about him anymore. So I don't know. And Rams Seattle is like two ex-girlfriends for me. Which one did you like more? I don't know. I got to think about it. I really do have to think about who I'm going to root for in that game. Anyway, we'll see what happens, and we'll know who's in the Super Bowl. And it will be to be prepared, your Leonardo's at Millhopper quick pick too, as well. And we're going to make a poll Monday, so that's important. All right, let us take a break. And we'll come back, and with Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South, we'll talk to him about Indiana. We'll also talk to him about college football and what's going on there in a lot of ways. And we'll do a yes-no-where maybe with him as well. You are listening to or watching another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. We'll be right back after this break. Here are just a few reasons why doing business with the Royal Blue puts you at the helm of your boating lifestyle. 1, the longer we have your listing, the lower percentage commissions you will pay. 2, survey reimbursement for qualified buyers. 3, detail reimbursement for qualified sellers. 4, on-the-water delivery orientation availability. Call us today to schedule a consultation to see what Royal Blue can do to solve all of your boating needs. Call Randy at 850-974-1294.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
All right, it may be a new year, but it doesn't mean you have to back off any of your goals as far as losing weight. I know I've been working even harder on it, and of course I get an assist from BMI TeleMed. They help us out with our New Year's resolutions, even if I've already broken 2 of them. Not the food ones, though. Weight loss is your goal. Get with BMI TeleMed. They use GLP-1 medications, and they are individualized. And that's the great thing. I've been through this, and Charlie, just talking to him, it was so great to make him understand, and he understood what I was doing. It's not about just losing weight. It is about keeping it off. You know that. We're all excited about the new year, and we're going to lose weight. But when you lose it in the first month, then you got to keep going. BMI TeleMed is sensible. It's straightforward. It's affordable. No contracts or hidden costs. BMI TeleMed is donating $1 for every pound you lose to the Florida Victorious Foundation. So go Gators. Join the listeners on this podcast who've already lost over 600 pounds. Are you kidding me? I'm 60 of them right there. All right, contact BMI TeleMed today at 727-383-1677. Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. It's great to bring on an Indiana alum. We wanted to get one, so we reached out and we said, hey, Connor O'Gara went to Indiana, didn't he? Nah, that's not the way it worked. We wanted him on anyway to talk about the national championship, having no idea that Indiana would win the whole thing, and they did. Connor, I know you're happy as, of course, Connor O'Gara works for Saturday Down South. I know you're a happy camper right now.
I am, and yes, let the record show that you reached out weeks ago about setting this up. That was before we knew that Indiana would even be playing in the national championship, much less winning it in the way that they did. So, yeah, I am still riding high. The way that everything unfolded on Monday, getting to be there to witness that was truly surreal in every possible way. And I'm very grateful for the experience that I got because, as we were talking about before we came on air, it just doesn't happen like this in college football. And I'm sure Florida fans saw the stat of, this is the first time national champion since 1996 Florida. It is the ultimate haves versus have-nots sport. And you're not supposed to go from the levels that Indiana was at to all of a sudden be competing for national championships, much less winning them and becoming the first team since 1894 Yale to go 16-0. So, yeah, all of this is just an out-of-body experience. And man, I've been smiling because I won't call myself some diehard Indiana football fan when your only emotion is apathy. I've told many people this. When your only emotion is apathy, they can't hurt you. And so Indiana football has not hurt me in the same way that Indiana basketball has. And so I won't pretend and sit here that I've gone through, the trials and tribulations of so many people associated with that program. But man, I've never felt more pride watching something play out, watching the way that this team, this fan base has been able to respond. It's the stuff of legend, and we'll be talking about this for decades.
How hard was it not to be, there's a rule, we all know the rule, no cheering in the press box.
Yeah, it was as hard as it's ever been in my entire life. And, so it's funny. The way that the press box was set up, we were in the southwest corner of Hard Rock Stadium. It's a closed press box, so it's not an open air press box. One of the things I love about the Swamp and why I try and tell people how great the Swamp is because it's an open air press box. And when you're in the media, you want to get a good feel for the in-game atmosphere. And so the Swamp has an open air press box and Mercedes-Benz has an open air press box now. They changed that a few years ago. And being in that closed press box, not only was it closed, but we're also in the southwest corner, so it's the Miami section. And on top of that, with being surrounded by unbiased journalists who have a very different perspective than I do, I had the Miami creative team and PR team in the row ahead of me. So when IU would do something good, even with the crowd advantage in that stadium, it was this reaction of dismay kind of around me and more of that of frustration. And meanwhile, I'm having to program my brain into thinking, oh no, that was actually a good thing that happened. And I could sit here and admit, like, obviously I'm biased. If I can push a button and have my alma mater win a national championship as opposed to Miami or any other school, yes, I would push that button. I'm a human being. But it was unbelievably hard. And it wasn't until I got on the field afterwards as they're celebrating this championship that I'm looking around and I'm just going, man, I've got like tears in my eyes. And I've never felt that covering an event before. And Lord knows I was very privileged and blessed to be able to take in that scene.
I did not cover that Yale team, by the way, in 30.
I didn't say that. Your words,
Yeah.
not mine.
But I remember being there in '96, and there was the work takes over for you. You go, okay, I've got to do this. This is what I have to do. Yeah, I would love to go hug people, but I can't do that. And so we stayed up all night and put out a special edition, for the newspaper. So I mean, we never went to bed, and then we had a press conference at 8 in the morning. So you just kind of didn't sleep, and the work keeps you from being a fan. But it was certainly exciting, and I would think that they're going to have to put a statue up of the Mendoza touchdown on
Yes.
campus there in Indiana.
Sarkisian said before the start of the year that we're done with undefeated teams probably. And if you do go undefeated in this day and age of college football, you deserve a statue. Indiana deserves a statue.
Yeah.
Like that's happening. Like don't get it twisted. Like regardless of what plays out the rest of the Signetti era, like this is absolutely statue worthy.
Well, I mean, you cover all college football, but obviously we're talking a lot about Indiana. But do you think a lot of college football teams are going to try to take the Signetti approach to it, or is it not necessarily, you can just take that blueprint and plug it into where you are?
I think it would be disrespectful to Indiana to say you can just look at the blueprint and copy it because there are so many elements to this that are really difficult. Like there are certain elements that teams can copy, like Alex Golesh at Auburn. Is obviously he has not necessarily a farm system, but he has a really good foundation in place because of the guys that he brought over from USF, where he had a lot of success there. And he has processes that he feels like worked, and he's hoping that that's going to blend with the pieces that were retained on that Auburn roster, and that you could be able to do some things year one to establish that foundation. And that's what Signetti did. You can copy things like that. You can have an older team. You can go out and recruit older players, and you can do things like that really well, and you can have really good talent evaluation. But what to me is so impressive about the way that IU went about this is they got proof of concept in year one, and they went from having no fan support whatsoever and probably a lot of outside skepticism to having, wait a minute, all of a sudden you've got people that are donating to the program. You've got you've got an assistant pool that's suddenly on par with Ohio State. And suddenly you've got this fan support that's so overwhelming that people kind of see that. And all of a sudden you're able to go into the transfer portal and flip a switch that you've never really been able to flip before. So you have all that. On top of that, you have these assistants that are rock solid, that Brian Haynes and Mike Shanahan, I'm amazed that those guys didn't get power conference head coach interest after what happened this year with this Indiana team. And maybe that speaks more to this belief that it's just Signetti and he's the guy that's making this thing go. And there's certainly a lot to be said for that. But just think about the guts that this team has shown time and time again. And not just the execution stuff that happens and how good they are in a lot of these moments, but the decision making. 4th and 5, you're up 3. On the 12-yard line with 9.5 minutes left in the national championship. 99% of college football coaches, they kick the field goal, they go up 6, and they say, Miami, if you're going to beat us, go score a touchdown. And they go for it in that spot, and that's what's going to be lost in the shuffle of that Mendoza run, that statue-worthy run, is that you had a coaching staff that saw all that failure with the quarterback run game and saw all of those things standing in Fernando Mendoza's way, and they made that call in that spot. I don't think it's fair to say that you can just automatically recreate that. And what this Indiana team did so well was having that presence for the moment. And to me, that's going to be darn near impossible to replicate. Maybe Indiana can't even replicate it in the way that they had it in 2025.
I want to be on the record that I loved Mendoza at Cal. And when he went to Indiana, I went, oh, that's going to be interesting because they've got good players around him. I just loved him at Cal. I watched him play a lot for some reason. I think it's because they played FSU and Miami both that year. I can't remember, but I watched for some reason a lot of their games. But you get out of that unbelievable surreal situation, and then you come back to the reality of college sports, which is the Bediako situation, the Mensa situation, and you're probably like, I liked it better over there, where there was confetti coming down.
It felt so pure. It really did. Now everybody's talking about, oh, hey, what's wrong with college sports? And in some ways, though, what Indiana just did, it kind of came at a perfect time, at a time in which everybody kind of feels like it's this free for all, and there aren't rules that are enforceable, and blah blah blah, and maybe the interest could be waning, and it just feels like it's still going to come down to who's the richest program and blah blah blah. And Indiana comes in here, and man, it felt like everybody got on board with that. What's amazing about this, and if Florida ever went on a run like this, that was just kind of out of nowhere. I don't think that you would necessarily all of a sudden have Miami and Florida State fans and Tennessee fans and Georgia fans that are texting you going, man, I hope your team wins. I hope your team wins. And the amount of people that I had from Purdue and Kentucky and Illinois, people that went to those schools that had all the reason in the world to root against IU, that are like, this is pretty incredible. And in some ways, it feels like they were doing it for the little guy. And that's why this was a sports movie that played out in real time, and in a time in which a lot of people question the motives of college athletics and all that. Like, you just look at Fernando Mendoza and Kurt Signetti and the faces of this run. They're so pure, they're so genuine, and you might not necessarily agree with everything that comes out of their mouth, and I'm not even saying that I do, but you can see just why these people were so unbelievably easy to root for, and why America was so captivated by this team.
Who plays Signetti in the movie?
I don't know, man. I don't know, because it's gonna be really tough. So this is
I
gonna
got
be
one of
maybe,
the Jonas brothers playing Mendoza. That's what I that's
yeah.
really here, and
Yeah, that's probably a good call. I don't know if you could. Joe seems a little bit too pretty boy for that. Yeah, I don't know. This is a niche thing, and he's not an actor, but the guy who looks the most like him is Kickball Dad, who is a sensation on Instagram and TikTok for those listening
yeah.
who have seen him before. I think he dressed up as him for Halloween, and he's like the most pure form of entertainment on social media these days. So he would actually be the perfect person. Unfortunately, I don't know if he's a particularly good actor. I know he's particularly good at making videos on social media, but yeah, that's the thing, man. It's like, it's going to be so hard. And I wrote about this after the game. If you want to make a movie off of this, sure, go ahead, but you can't create something that's better than the original. If you were trying to do, like, what I always say about Friday Night Lights that gets lost in the shuffle is how many details of that movie were changed. And it's an unbelievable movie. I mean, I think the show is slightly better, if we're being honest, but
I agree with you there. Yeah.
the show's great. But how many details were changed? The Mike Winchell run to be able to end a game, or the Billingsley run. Like, they didn't have those moments. They had to create those moments. You don't have to necessarily change the 4th and 5 run. There's nothing you're going to be able to do in a cinematic universe to make that better. So it's a fascinating question, and I'm sure that other people, I know my guy Bob Kravitz has been trying to come up with an answer to that question as well, like who would be the perfect person to play Signetti. But man, just documentaries is kind of all I need from it. I don't necessarily even need anybody trying to recreate those moments.
Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, I agree with you on that part of it. It's going to be interesting. I do want to talk a little bit because, I mean, the Big Ten's got a chance to have both the football and basketball winner this year. And obviously this 3-year run that they're on, winning the national championship, all of a sudden the SEC's had to shut up. Now, I will say this. We were all with you, okay? All the Gator fans, all the Seminole fans, were all with Indiana. I think 90% of the state was rooting for Indiana only because they hate Miami. But now you're sitting in a situation where the Big Ten rules in football, 3 straight, and now you've got a basketball where Michigan certainly is a great team. Purdue's a great team. I mean, they could easily have a double dip there and not leave anything for anybody else.
It's certainly possible. And, this is something I wrote about this week is this three unique champions in as many years. It was really what launched the SEC era of dominance from 2006 to 2022. And the SEC was able to repeat that feat again in 2019. And you're able to have these three unique winners in that stretch with obviously LSU and then Alabama and Georgia being able to win national championships. But I almost feel like Indiana is what really kind of sets that reality in. Because if it had just been Michigan and Ohio State, there are people from your generation, my generation, who would go, well, yeah, I mean, Michigan and Ohio State, duh, like they've dominated the Big Ten forever. That doesn't change the power dynamics. We don't think about the Big Ten differently, but, think about this too. Before Michigan won that national title 2 years ago, the Big Ten was searching for its first non-Ohio State outright national champion since 1952 Michigan State. And what they've been able to do in this 3-year stretch is totally change the complexion of the sport. And it's hard not to look at the rules and the way that things have changed. And Indiana couldn't have assembled that roster 10 years ago. There's no way that we'd be talking about Indiana winning a national championship with only 7 former blue chip recruits if we had the same rules in place 10 years ago. And so Indiana did a tremendous job of adapting. And even Ohio State, into that 2024 team, did a tremendous job of being able to adapt and understand, look, we've got NIL at our disposal. 2023 didn't end the way that we wanted to with a Cotton Bowl loss to Mizzou. And all of a sudden, you had this sense of urgency that really fueled that Ohio State team to go on the run that it did. So the Big Ten has been able to take advantage of these rules, and the SEC has not. And if you're just under the impression that the SEC is, it's just kind of quiet, nothing has really changed in college football, I would say then why has the Big Ten been able to do exactly what allowed the SEC to flex during that run of dominance? So yeah, it does feel like the power dynamics in this sport have changed and at least put the SEC more in the middle of the pack than they've been probably at any point in the last 20 years.
Let me ask you one more question before we get to yes, no, where, maybe, and that has to do with the most freezing cold take I had of the year last year was teams are not going to fire coaches because of this $20 million they've got to come up with. So they're not. Nobody's.
I tried to talk you out of that too.
It was only 12 in the SEC. Did all of them get fired? I can't remember.
Dude, I tried to tell as many people, and I saw there were people like Nicole Auerbach who were tweeting about this a lot last year of, hey, this $20.5 million, there's a lot of money that you need to be able to spend on rosters, and you can't be spending that on buyouts. And I said, as long as there is financial incentive to win and lose in this sport, there will be coaches fired and there will not be coaches in perpetuity. And it was just a blip. And if you looked at all these coaches that went into 2024 on the hot seat, all of them had winning seasons and they had multi-win improvements. And so it was just more of a byproduct of that, more so than teams being like, you know what, we just don't have the money. They'll find the money. They'll always find the money. And this year is a perfect reflection of that. And now we've got 6 new coaches in the SEC. It has been a total overhaul of, the conference and the dynamics itself. I mean, think about this. And I don't know if this is something that you brought up before. The oldest coach in the SEC is Brent Venables, the guy who literally in his free time runs stadiums. At no point in SEC history has the conference looked like this, where it's so young. And Will Stein would have been my age in class. And that's just a weird thing to process of how young the SEC has gotten at the head coaching spots. Like if Brett Bielema came back to the SEC for some reason, he'd be the oldest coach in the SEC. Brett Bielema. I mean, this is just a different world that we're living in. And it's a reminder with all of the coaching turnover we had this offseason, teams still have all this financial incentive to get this right. And it's a weird thing to also juxtapose that to a 64-year-old head coach winning a national championship and kind of wondering what it's going to look like. Should we be getting older with these coaches in these rosters? So yeah, this sport, it always continues to change. But one thing that stays the same is that buyouts will still be paid.
Yep. They will. I just didn't think they would, but hey, because I mean, like Florida was cutting 5% of every sport, of their budget. And so I didn't think it would, but hey, I was wrong about that one. I think that's been made pretty clear. And by the way, Brett Bielema is not going to be running stadium steps, just so you know.
I think Brett. I think Brett would probably get tired just watching Brent Venables do the stadiums. That's not his. He's a strength guy. He's not a cardio guy.
All right, let's get to yes, no way, or maybe. It is brought to you by Big Mills Cheesesteak, the place to go to get sausage dogs, to get cheesesteak, to get anything you want. They got great food over there. And if you tell them you listen to this podcast with the great Connor O'Gara, you get free fries with your order. All right, we start off with number one. You saw it. You saw this guy play. Malachi Tony will be in New York next year.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. I love Malachi Tony. I really, really do, man. The things that he does in space. If you don't have a team that tackles well, buddy, forget about it. Even Indiana, a team that tackles incredibly well.
He breaks a lot of what you think are good tackles. He breaks.
He does.
He's kind of like Percy in that way. Percy Harbour.
Yes, very much so. Like I see so many similarities there, and he is an electric playmaker. I'm gonna say no way, just because even Jeremiah Smith, the year that he had, is a Blitnikoff Award winner, like didn't even get a sniff. I just think it's so tough for a wide receiver to do that. So I'm gonna say no way, even though like if he's not the second best receiver in the sport behind Jeremiah Smith, I mean I don't know. I don't really know how you could argue against that.
If I had my ballot back, I would take Pavia out of the second spot for obvious reasons and put Malachi Tony in there. I had Mendoza, Pavia, and then Rodriguez. Jacob Rodriguez.
I had the same exact ballot as
really?
you. I would have liked to have seen Jacob
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez.
Great minds think alike. That's what I'm talking.
That's right, man. Look, it would have been fun to see Jacob Rodriguez. I didn't need to see Julian Saint in New York. And maybe that sounds disrespectful. If I think you're the third best player on your own offense, to me, that's not good enough. I thought Carnell Tate also was incredible, and I thought he was someone who benefited greatly from his surroundings. I thought Jacob Rodriguez, man, and you can make the argument maybe David Bailey was the best player on that defense at times, but I thought Rodriguez and the turnovers he forced was a difference maker.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's get to number two on yes, no, where, maybe with Connor O'Gara. Most people, you believe, and at least this is what I believe, but most people, you believe, were unaware that Mark Cuban was an Indiana alumnus until this week.
Whoa. No way. No way.
I didn't know.
You didn't know? Oh, okay. All right.
Well, I don't want Shark Tank either, so...
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's something that we're told like upon arrival for orientation at Indiana is that, hey, you know where Cuban went here? You could live a great life. You could be flying on private jets and owning an NBA team and doing all that stuff. No, look, I'm gonna say no way. I'm gonna say 90% of people knew that he was an Indiana alum, but I'm the wrong person to ask on that because I've known that forever. I knew that before. I started at IU in 2008. I knew that beforehand and knew that he was obviously a big part of the culture. But what's kind of crazy about Cuban is that he hadn't donated money to NIL athletics funds until this year. And so all of a sudden, if that resource is opened up, man, you're looking at a totally different situation. And I do think that seeing him show up and show out, like he was one of the first people I saw on the field on Monday night, and kind of walking past him and realizing, dang, this thing is, they might not have the Ray Lewises and Ed Reeds over there on that sideline, but they got a guy that's pretty darn important too.
I like Mark Cuban a lot more than Michael Irvin, so I can tell you that much right there.
I'll take seeing shots of Cuban over shots of Michael Irvin. Yeah. I love the passion. We get it though. We get it.
Okay, number three on yes, no, where, maybe. There will be an NCAA in 2030.
No way. No way. It's done.
I think it's about to go under, to be honest.
Yeah. It's looking, not to say that the College Sports Commission, remember that? Remember when that was supposed to be?
Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember when they were going to step in and actually enforce these things, and they'll tweet out every once in a while, we've processed these amount of deals and blah, blah. Are we actually seeing any punishments? Is anybody being punished? Remember when they were supposed to be able to look over these contracts and tampering and all this stuff, and even when there's blatant
I think
cases?
Cleveland State, they're going to go after Cleveland State.
Smart.
That's what the NCAA always did when they would put Cleveland State on probation even when everybody else was cheating.
Yeah, they'll look at a school like UNC and go, hey, you're pretty deliberately making these fake classes, but yeah, you know what? You are offering them up to other students, even though you give basketball players the first right to take these classes. And I'll just say as well, that's happening at other places. That wasn't just happening at UNC, and I can tell you from firsthand experience that was happening in other places, if you see what I'm saying. But there is just a total lack of a backbone with the NCAA in today's day and age. And the fact that you can just sue them, and maybe this Trinidad Chambliss case is going to be kind of the beginning of the end. Lord knows the Nico Iamaleava case was kind of the beginning of the end for the NCAA. They don't have any power to be able to enforce this stuff. And you can push back and basically enforce these antitrust laws. And they are powerless at this point. So yeah, I'm going to say no way the NCAA exists by the end of the decade.
Yeah, I think they're gumming their food. I mean, the Bediako thing is going to be, I think, the icebreaker, and that could be just, now we're going to have a super league. We're going to have our own rules. We're going to collect the bargaining, everything, and it may work. Maybe it will be good if we get better games, because you can't play Southern Illinois. That, anyway, we'll see what happens. But I mean, it's almost like you just got to grab and hold on and see what happens.
Do you know the mascot for Southern Illinois?
Salukis?
There it is. That's pretty good. I had a couple
pretty
of
good on
uncles.
mascots. Yeah,
that's pretty darn good. I had a moment. High school Connor thought about going to Southern Illinois, and then thought, you know what, Carbondale's way too far, and I'm glad I ended up in Indiana.
Dan Cross was from Carbondale, who played on Florida's Final Four team in '94.
There we go.
Appreciate you, Connor. You did great. Yeah, as always, man. We love having you on. We don't like to bother you during the season. We get you before and get you after. That's the perfect way to do it.
Pat, bother me anytime. Anytime. Would love to be able to come on.
We'll be back with more of another duly noted podcast right after this break.
On April 7th, 2025, Gator Nation reached the mountaintop as Florida won the national championship in basketball. Now, relive every thrilling moment with Franz Beard's new book, The Golden Season, the unforgettable story behind Florida's historic 2025 title run. Feel the passion, the drama, and the glory all over again. Available now at Spurriers.com. Click the shop tab. That's Spurriers.com.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Adams Rib Company has been a staple of Gainesville for more than a decade and a staple of the Dooley house ever since Kelsey's teeth came in. The first time I walked into Adams, I told my daughter that the green beans are always a test of a great barbecue restaurant, and they were perfect. You know about the ribs that melt in your mouth, and my favorite, the turkey plate. But be sure to go in on Fridays for Nana's Fish Nuggets. They will melt in your mouth. Adams Rib Co., a Gainesville great. Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Appreciate Connor for coming on. Great stuff from him, and we are excited about, talking about next year. But we're going to kind of shift a little bit to basketball, but there's going to be a lot of football talk as well coming up here because, spring games coming up on Master Saturday, of course, but they start practice on it in very soon in March, very early March. So we'll talk a lot of basketball, we'll talk a lot of football, we'll talk a lot of everything. We all know that. And not only that, we have a Super Bowl coming up. All right, let's get to our Hesser and Kipke three things. Hesser and Kipke, with over 50 years of combined legal experience in North and Central Florida, Hesser and Kipke is your place for bankruptcy, workers' compensation, and family law. Call or text Ken and Jennifer at 352-339-9920, Hesser and Kipke. I didn't really think of Buffalo as being a dysfunctional franchise until the press conference by the owner, Pagula, who came out and was they looked kind of silly, especially because they threw Keon Coleman, who I really liked in college as a player. I didn't like him because he played for FSU one year, but I did like him. When they drafted him, that's another weapon for Josh Allen. And he has been a little bit of not a disappointment. But I don't think he's been terrible. But he comes out and he says, let me stop everybody here. The coaching staff wanted Keon Coleman. Our GM didn't. And Keon Coleman's still on the team. How can you throw him under the bus like that? It feels like a giant mess up there right now. And I don't know. I mean, now it gives me reason to root against Buffalo, which I never really had that big of a reason before. I was rooting for him the other night. I don't know. I don't know if I can root for him anymore. That was another thing I did want to mention from way earlier on the whole Alabama with the Bediako thing. Somebody put this on Twitter, and it was a pretty good line. They said, somehow Alabama has got the entire world rooting for the NCAA. Well, I don't think the entire world, but it's close. I can tell you that much. Everybody's rooting for the NCAA to win this, so this doesn't happen, and it's not just pros coming in to play. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is Buffalo is a mess, and will be interesting to see how they go forward. All right, let's get to number 2 on our Hesser and Kipke 3 things, and that is the Mets strike again. Freddie Peralta, they got their frontline starter. Yay for them. The bad thing is, I don't know if it's bad. Maybe you have a better chance, but the bad thing is one of the guys in the deal was Brandon Sproat, former Gator, and now he'll be pitching in Milwaukee or for Milwaukee. So hey, it's just a change of scenery, man. You got to rent. You got to rent in the big leagues, I think. But anyway, so Brandon Sproat goes to Milwaukee. The Mets get Freddie Peralta. It's the teams with money make money, and they spend money, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Finally, let's get to number 3 on our Hesser and Kipke 3 things, which is that the 49ers. We've seen injuries happen for teams. Teams get hurt a lot. Gosh, the 2000, it would have been what, 13 team for Florida? Yeah, 13. That team had so many. You lost your starting quarterback, you lost your backup quarterback, you lost your best defensive player, all that. But the 49ers are looking, and you lost to Georgia Southern too. The 49ers are looking into everything because they're trying to figure out why we're having so many injuries, and they've had so many. One of the things they're looking at is they think there may be an electrical substation near the stadium that is causing this. Now, the scientists have told them that's impossible. That could not have any effect on injuries, but they're looking at it. They think it may be true. Okay, there could be a voodoo doctor or in the area that you don't know about. There could be sticking pins in people's Achilles. Who knows what it is? But maybe it's just that you had bad luck. Maybe it's just that your guys played so hard and that's when you sometimes get hurt. There's 2 ways to get hurt: play too hard or play too easy. If you play in the middle, you still get hurt. Anyway, that is interesting. Electrical substation. That's the reason the Niners are not still playing. All right. Let us move along to our BMI TeleMed Smart Move of the Week. It is brought to you by our friends at BMI TeleMed. Achieve and maintain with the medical weight loss specialist, 727-383-1677. Tell them Pat Dooley sent you. You get a discount on your order there. It is working for me. It'll work for you. And people have lost over 600 pounds just listening to this show and calling BMI TeleMed. The smart move of the weekend, or the week, to me, was getting Chinny out of there. Because, look, he had 21 rebounds, and you're thinking he may get like a record that'll never be broken, a school record that'll never be broken. He may get I don't know, I think the college record is something ridiculous. I think it's 30-something. Anyway, but the numbers are just incredible, and he's getting every rebound. They got him out. Look, the bottom line is if he gets 21 or 28 rebounds, it doesn't matter. The fact that he's in the 20s, he did his job. The game is over. Get him out of the game. I agreed with that 100%. So that was a smart move by Todd not to say, hey, let's go see let's see if we can get him to 2020 or something like that, which you could have. You could have just started feeding the ball and get him, because they were fouling him. He's become a good free throw shooter. Jinx. Knock on wood. There's some wood here. There you go. I got to knock on. But he's become a really good free throw shooter. But yeah, smart move getting him out when they did. Which brings us to our Adams Ribco Gator of the Week. Adams Ribco, the only place you go to get your barbecue and ribs, are the best in the world. Nana's Fish Nuggets tomorrow. Don't forget that as well. I can't help myself. I've got to make it Ruben Chinyelu. I'm sorry, but when you go for 13 and 15 in the second half alone, you're going to be my player of the week. I kind of looked around at some people, but no, I had to stick with him, man. He is what he is doing is pretty. I mean, he has got himself in contention for SEC Player of the Year. Now, Thomas Houck has too, and don't forget, Houck did not have a great game. Had poor shooting game. Balls are just spinning out on him. Only scored 7 points. Still did all the little things he needed to do. But I mean, that didn't take him out of the equation. There's a lot of guys who could be the SEC Player of the Year. Don't think there aren't. But I'm just saying Florida's got at least 2 that are going to be in the running, and 2 that are going to be running for all SEC. Those honors are important, only that I'd like to see them happen, but they have nothing to do with winning and losing games. Just so I'd say that. Anyway, Chinyelu got 21 rebounds in 23 minutes. That's almost a rebound a minute. That's hard to do. That is really hard to do, but pretty impressive performance against an LSU team that I know they're struggling, but they were up 18-3 on Kentucky. Should have won that game. Guy hits a Leitner shot. They were up early on Missouri and then came back. Missouri came back, and that was where they got the win last week. And don't forget, Missouri's the only team that's beaten Florida. So, yeah, I was nervous going to that game. I mean, they were getting their guy back that had been out for 5 weeks. DJ Thomas? I can't think of his last name. I think it's DJ Thomas. Anyway, I digress. So let's go on and move into our Gallo Car Wash Sponge of the Week. It is brought to you by our good friends at Gallo Car Wash, the only place we get our cars washed, all 3 of them. I've got my car back now, so yeah, got to head over there. They did actually watch it at the place where they were fixing it, but so I think I can wait a couple of days. But yeah, need to get over there and get it washed. Gallo is the place to go. Sponge of the Week is every coach who has said, hey, there are no rules. I might as well cheat. You guys are soaking up good players, and you're being sponges. And I'm not saying I blame you. It's not Alabama's fault. It's not Miami's fault that the rules are non-existent. It's not, it's like, don't hate the player, hate the game. Hate the rules. The rules, there are no rules. And people are cheating like crazy. They're tampering. They're not enforcing that. They're not enforcing anything. And so as a result, we have the definition of Wild Wild West, which is, it's kind of like Tombstone is what it is. People are getting killed in the streets. Anyway, it is out of control. And, but hey, look, if you're a coach who is taking advantage of some of these things, I can't blame you. I can't blame you for, offering a quarterback $6.5 million, which apparently is what Mensah's been offered, and a scholarship for his sister, and an NIL deal for his sister, and a campaign, all this stuff that they've offered him. I can't blame you for doing that. If you've got the money, do it. Get them. I wish Florida had that kind of money. I know that their NIL deals, they got good NIL deals going. That's how they retain those 5 guys. And brought in a couple more I brought in a lot, but there's a couple of big names in there that I think their class is fine, is what I'm trying to say. But, and you had to retain all the kids who committed to you, and you got most of them to come. So that there's definitely money there, but it's not Miami money. It's not Texas Tech money where there's billionaires. It's not Indiana money. I mean, I know Signetti tried to say, "Oh, it's not that much money that we." You got pretty good money. They're trying to get Mark Cuban to give them a little bit more. Anyway, let's move along to our Leonardo's at Millhopper quick pick, brought to you by our friend Kyle Cohen at Leonardo's at Millhopper, the place to go to get pizza and a dual sandwich and a great salad bar. We're going to just take the 2 NFL games. These are your last chances to qualify for another pull. I've got the gift certificate right here. I've got a couple of them, but I've got one for you for the winner because Russell Bayer decided that he'd rather just get a signed hat because he doesn't get up here. And so we pushed up the usual drawing. So we're going to do that. And Russell, I will get you that hat in the mail. I've just been busy with a lot of things, trying to get my car and everything. But I will get that. Hopefully we'll do it today. But you'll get it. Signed, right? I think it's signed. You wanted it signed by me. I don't know who else would do it. All right. So Leonardo's at Millhopper quick pick. New England -5.5 at Denver. The Rams +2.5 at Seattle. And by the way, I did want to mention I did get my pick right in the national championship game because I picked Miami. I took Miami in the points, and they covered 7.5. Well, I think I took it at 8.5. 7.5 is where it ended up being, and they won by 7. Well, that could have been a bad beat. Anyway, yeah, like if you threw that ball and it was picked off and that guy ran it all the way back. Now, he went down on a knee, which, by the way, I'm still mad at that player, Sharp. I can't remember his first name. His cousin was the guy who had the interference penalty for Miami, so the Sharps have cost Miami 2 national titles. So I'm just saying. Taking his helmet off, and as soon as he did it, I went, no, what are you doing? They're getting the ball on the 4-yard line. You got to take a couple knees. Well, 3-yard line, actually. You got to take a couple knees, and you're very close to the end zone. And I mean, look, the game is not over. Don't take your helmet off. Look, I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to take your helmet off, but it's a rule that you can't. Again, there are no rules. Now, he got penalized half the distance, so they go back to the 2. And, I was nervous about that last play. In fact, I suggested they take the snap and run out of the end zone. Because if they ran out of the end zone, the clock would be, because it was going to be down to 2 seconds. Run out of the end zone. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. Let's go ahead and finish up. Let's get to this, that, and the other. We always like our this, that, and the other. And we've gone through different sponsors, but one that stayed with us every time, Darshackow Insurance, which is where you go for all your home and auto needs, all your commercial needs. It is a place to go for your insurance, all your life needs. Darshackow Insurance. And by Notary Joe. Notary Joe is a place, he will come to you. You don't need to go to Joe. Joe will come to you, and he will fix your notary situation up. 863-990-4884. Joseph Newton does a great job there. And it's brought to you by the Atlanta Hustle, the South's Ultimate Frisbee team. I think they're about to start their season right now. So we'll see how they go. I'll keep track of them for you, okay? The Atlanta Hustle. Here we go. All right. The this, that, and the other. This is the Dodgers, when they got Freddie Freeman, I went, that's it. The Braves are done. The Dodgers are going to just, and I was frustrated. And they were spending money on all these players. That's this. They were spending crazy money. So that is that they won two straight World Series. Now, last one was a little dicey, but they won 2 straight World Series by spending all that money, which is a lot of money. And then they signed Kyle Tucker this year, and you're just like, it's just not fair that they get all the great players because they have the most money and they can spend the most money. It's just not fair. The other is that the owners are now saying maybe we do need a salary cap. Now, those owners would be Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, trying to think of Tampa Bay, small market teams. Yeah, I don't know how small market Tampa Bay is, but they don't have the money. Anyway, my point is that the only reason they think there should be a salary cap is not because the Yankees, when the Yankees have been spending all this money all through time, back to the Steinbrenners, nobody said a word to them. Well, we don't need a salary cap. Now we need one because the Dodgers are winning. Now, the Yankees did win back then, but they didn't win with this kind of consistency, I think. They won championships. I'm not talking about the Mickey Mantle era. I'm talking about the Jeter era, stuff like that. They did win a lot, and they won some world championships too. But it feels like now the Dodgers have become the enemy of the world, and now they're talking about a salary cap. I don't think it'll happen. I think the union's got too much power. Anyway, that is our this, that, and the other, brought to you by Darshak Insurance, by Notary Joe's, and by the Atlanta Hustle. Let's move along to Mark Gaida presents the 12, brought to you by Mark Gaida at Papine Realty. Appreciate Mark for being a part of our show. And what we're going to give you today are, because Mark Schlabach, I think, invented the way too early top 25. Maybe somebody else at ESPN did, and then he picked it up. And my recollection is that he invented it, but whether he did or not doesn't matter. But he came out with his, and I always look forward to seeing it. Mark's a good friend, been on this show several times. Get him on again. And so here it is, the 12, the top 12 that Mark Gaida presents every week on the show. All right, so number one, he's got Indiana. I do not agree with Indiana at number one. I think they've lost a lot of great players. They've signed some great players, but we'll see. I playing anybody in the non-con, I would not pick, if I was doing a ballot, I would not pick Indiana number one. And they've got Texas too. And I go back to the Sark factor. He's had all the resources and doesn't get it done. So I would have them at like 4 or 5. In fact, by the way, I saw preseason favorite for the Heisman's Arch Manning again. You got to go to New York once, right? To get Notre Dame 3, Georgia 4. A lot of people think Georgia's going to win it all this year. I don't know. Oregon 5, Ohio State 6, Texas Tech 7, Miami 8. Now, if they get Mensa, which it looks like they're going to get him eventually, we'll see. But 9 Ole Miss, 10 A&M, 11 BYU, 12 Oklahoma. So basically the same teams as we had this past year. Those are the teams spending the most in NIL. Alabama all the way down at 21. And LSU was not in the top 12, but in the top 15. So, look, I can come up with a list. You can come up with a list. Mark Schlabach can come up with a list. None of us know what's going to happen. Not only that, we don't know who's going to be where right now. Right now, as we sit here today, rosters are going to change even more drastically. So we'll see what happens. All right, let us wrap it up as we always do with our Swamp Games of the weekend. Looking forward to another great weekend of sports, and I hope you are too. Don't forget, I mentioned earlier, New England at Denver 3 on CBS. The Rams and Seattle 6:30 on Fox. Those are the two games on Sunday, NFL games. Those aren't good days for basketball, but we do have plenty of basketball coming up. But I did want to mention Friday night, 8:45 on the SEC network, Florida versus Auburn. In another sport, maybe they should the planes will pass each other as they're going through. Florida at Auburn in gymnastics. Auburn is ranked number 11. Florida's number 1. So that'll be fun to watch on the SEC network. Let's get to our basketball. Saturday, Ole Miss at Kentucky, noon on ESPN. Georgia at Tennessee at 1 on the SEC network. Got to have 2 TVs. You have Purdue playing at 3 o'clock on Fox against Illinois. Purdue's hosting Illinois. That's a good ranked-on-ranked game. And then, of course, the Florida game is at 4 o'clock, and it is on ESPN, among other things that are on ESPN. Everything's on ESPN. Houston at Texas Tech, that could be a really good game. 6:30 on ESPN. Tennessee at Alabama, 8:30 on ESPN. That could be interesting as well. So those are the big games that are coming up, and of course, football games. And we'll have a great time. There's golf again this weekend, so you can enjoy that as well. All right. Thanks so much to everybody for listening and watching. We appreciate you. Appreciate Connor. Appreciate Zach Rothrock for getting it done. Next week, we'll have Coach O'Sullivan on. That'll be a lot of fun. And, of course, on Monday, Coach Spurrier. Until then, I am Pat Dooley for another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios, saying I'm deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.